Yo, what is going on, my people? I am back. Hope you all are having a wonderful day. And in today's story time, we're going to be talking about the time I overdosed on Zoloft. Now, this goes quite a ways back. This goes back to my 6th grade year. And for those of you who don't know, this year I had moved to a new school, and things like being bullied continued to follow me from what I dealt with at the first school I went to. Now, during the particular time that this story takes place, we had to do that fitnessgram pacer test. It's basically where you have this chart and you find your age, gender, height, and then it gives you your BMI range that you should be at. And of course, I was well above that range because of how overweight I was. So at this particular school, the pacer test was a 2-day thing, because the first day we would have to do our push-ups and our sit-ups and our chin-ups, and we would get timed on our 10-yard dash, I think is what it was. And then the second day was when we did the mile, because the mile would take almost an entire class period on its own. Now, the first day went as you would expect. I couldn't do any of it, because I think for each individual thing, you were timed to see how much you could do in a minute. And I couldn't even do one. I was just that unhealthy and out of shape. So then, of course, you have the kids that, they can do 40 or 50 push-ups in a minute, and they've already done all their other stuff, so now they just get to sit and watch me struggle to do anything. And then once the teacher would finally tell me my time was up, and then I would happen to look at them and they would look at me like, wow, what a useless piece of trash you are. So that was pretty much the summary of how the first day went. Now, the second day is where things really unfolded. So basically, to give a rundown of how it went, class started, we went to the lockers and changed into our gym uniform. Pretty much as soon as we got into the gym, we did our usual stretch routine that we did every beginning of the period, and then after that we lined up and we started doing the mile. Now, we had to do it inside because it was raining, so we weren't going to go out to the track where there was a lot more room, because originally the plan was we would run the mile on the track, and then once you got done you could go back into the gym and there'd be another teacher who would just watch over the kids, and they could just do whatever. They could play knockout or kickball, whatever they felt like doing, because basically the rest of the class period was just going to be a free day. Now, because of this change in schedule with the weather, it wasn't going to be a free day until everyone was done with the mile, because it wasn't really a big gym. I mean, after all, it's a private school. So once you were done, you would have to sit on the bleachers and wait, so you're not in the way of anyone who's still running the mile. Now, starting off, I maybe get one whole lap in, and by the time I've gotten through the first lap, I'm already out of breath and my legs are on fucking fire. And I've always had to be careful because I'm asthmatic, and I've never really had an inhaler except for a few times throughout my younger years of life. So if I was getting to a point where I couldn't catch my breath, I had to be careful, otherwise I could start having an asthma attack. And so the only way I could get through this mile was to run the long ways of the gym and then walk going over to the other side and running the long ways, and just repeat and repeat. Because there was no way I could just keep running and keep running and keep running. Because, like, at the first school I went to, whenever all the kids in my class were just full of energy on a day, our teacher would just have us go and run for 5-10 minutes just to wear us out so we'd chill the fuck out. And it was one of those things where you probably could have just cut it down to a walking pace to catch your breath and then keep going, but you always felt like you just had to keep running, otherwise you were going to get in trouble. So, me trying to run even though I physically just can't, I would inevitably collapse because my legs would be in so much pain, and I would be so out of breath that I would get lightheaded. So now fast forward, we're probably a little over 25 minutes in, and the last person finishes. Now, because of the size of this gym, I think it was 32 laps would equal a mile. So at this point, when the last person is finishing, I think I was only like maybe 14 laps in at most. So really, I was only halfway through with my mile. And every time I would be going to finish my next lap, the teacher would be telling me I need to hurry up. And you know how when you're around people, you can start to just get the vibe, whether they're in a good mood or not. And I could tell from the vibe that the rest of the kids in my class were not happy. Now, mind you, this is a 45-minute class. And by the time we get changed and do our stretches and get ready to start the mile, it probably took about 10 minutes. So when it started, we got basically 35 minutes before class was over. Now, had I have finished the same time as everybody else, we would have had 10 minutes or so to do whatever. But what ended up happening was about 3 or 4 minutes till the end of the class, the teacher told everybody to just go ahead and change back into their school clothes. So they do that. I'm still doing what I can. They start coming back in, and the bell rings. And I still had maybe 7 or 8 laps left. And finally, the teacher just stopped me because the bell was ringing and told me just go ahead and stop and get changed. And see, we were getting graded for this. This was considered a test grade because it was worth 100 points. 50 was for how well you did on your first day of the pacer test, and the other 50 for how well you do on the mile. And the few assignments that we had otherwise was just, a 10-point thing. So if you did really good on this, but you had a bad grade, it could take you up 2, maybe 3 grade levels. But if you do bad, it's going to tank your grade. And because I wasn't able to complete the mile on time, and the first day I couldn't do a single thing of anything, I got a 0 out of 100. And that took me from like a high B to like a 40 something. Now, fortunately, at the end of the school year, when we had our final assessment, I did good enough that I was able to raise that grade up, and I ended up finishing with like a 65. So fortunately, I didn't flunk that class, but it was bullshit that my grade suffered just because I physically couldn't do what was required. But either way, not important to the story. So the bell rings, and the teacher tells me just go ahead and change, and I can just vaguely hear because, mind you, I'm panting for my fucking life at this point, and I can't feel my legs from my knees down. So I'm not really listening too well to what's going on because I'm trying to focus on not fucking dying. And I can just vaguely hear some of the kids calling me various names and calling me a piece of shit. Basically because I wasted their ability to have a free day that day. Because free days was very rare, because the only time they would really happen besides a day, where we're doing the mile, is when our regular teacher was sick and we had a sub. Because the sub wouldn't make us do anything. They would just tell us once we've gotten changed to do our regular beginning routine, and then we could just have a free day for the rest of the class period. So I can understand these kids not being happy because, well, their chance to have a free day didn't happen. But at the same time, I'm clinging on to fucking life trying to do this. Knowing all well and good I'm still going to get a shitty grade because I couldn't do anything. But I'm still trying because they always say, oh, it's the effort that counts. No, it fucking doesn't. It doesn't fucking count for shit. But either way, wow, I really started to explode there. Boy, yeah, some of these memories I don't really like thinking about, but oh well. So I have to wait until everybody else has gotten out the gym door to go in the halls because nobody's letting me get through because they're all pissed with me. So at this point, my mental condition and emotional state is starting to suffer from this, and I'm starting to show those emotions by starting to cry. And as I'm walking across the hall to the men's restroom where our locker room was, I get in there, I get changed. By the time I get changed, the bell for the next class period has already rang, and I didn't want to go to my next class just because of what I was feeling at the time, but I decided to anyway. And I get there and I walk in the door, and the teacher tells me I'm late, tells me to go to the office and get a tardy slip, all well and seeing that I'm crying and not in a good way at the moment. And so I pitter patter my way up to the office, and I just decided, you know what, fuck this, I've had enough of this. And so I get up there, nobody's even in the office at the time, and the front doors to the school are right there. So I see no one's around, and I just walk out the front door. And at this point, I've already got a plan pretty well, because this school also was not far from where I lived. It was a little bit farther than the first school that I went to, but it wasn't much. And so I just start walking, and pretty much the whole time I'm just thinking about what the teacher was saying about me needing to really step it up, and thinking about what all the other kids were saying to me and about me. And I was having a lot of very questionable thoughts going through my head. So finally, after half hour, 45 minutes, I get home. And normally my regular routine was, when I would get home, take my clothes off and go shower, because every day I had gym. Even if I didn't have gym, I still would sweat just trying to walk from class to class, just because of how out of shape I was. And even to this day, I still don't like sweating. I mean, I'm in 10 times better shape than I was back then, but I still don't like the feeling of being sweaty. I just feel disgusting. And granted, my hygiene as I got older was getting better, because I don't like body odor whatsoever. And I know when I was a kid, I had problems with that too because of my weight and stuff. So it was always just the default, as soon as I got home, shower. And of course I get home and my mother's not there because she's at work. And so I go to my room, I put my book bag down, and I sit on my bed, and I'm still thinking these bad thoughts in my head. And as I've mentioned before, Zoloft never did shit for me when it came to dealing with my bipolar disorder. So when I got undressed and then walked to the bathroom, I had the idea of taking more Zoloft than what I normally would. And at the time, I didn't realize that if you take too much of something, you can overdose from it. I just figured in my mind that, okay, this particular medicine isn't doing what it's supposed to help with. So maybe if I up the dosage some, maybe it'll actually start to have the intended effect. And of course, that's not how it played out. And there was like 8 or 10 left. So I get all of them in my hand and pop at my mouth, turn the faucet on, cup my hands, put it under so I can get some water to drink, and then I swallow them, and then I hop in the shower. And 10 minutes later, I get out of the shower, get dried off, go back to my room, and I'm still thinking these bad thoughts and still thinking about the things I had heard been said that day. And some time goes by, don't even really remember how much time did go by, but then I started getting this weird feeling, and I don't know how to describe it. I can't even really remember what it felt like, but I remember something felt off. And to start with, I just played it off, figuring, well, that's probably the Zoloft actually starting to work and actually do something. Well, it was doing something alright, but it wasn't doing what it was supposed to. And as time goes on, this feeling keeps getting progressively worse. But I'm just trying to ride it out, and then I start getting twitchy. Like certain muscles will just start twitching for no reason. And at this point, I'm starting to freak out a little bit. And of course, at this time, I didn't have my phone because my mom didn't like me having a phone. So anytime she would see that I had a phone, it would quickly become hers and go into a hidden drawer somewhere in her room that I could never find it. So if something was really going to start going wrong, I wouldn't have had a way to tell my mom that, hey, something's wrong, can you come home from work and help? And about this point, that's when these twitches starts turning into me spazzing. And I wasn't spazzing for very long before I just went out of consciousness. Now, I guess this just happened to be good timing, but when this was going on, this was during my mom's lunch break. And where she worked, she got an hour-long lunch break. So what she would do is she would come home from work and usually eat something at home and just relax for a little while. Now, the way she described it to me after the fact was when she got home, she could hear something shaking. Almost like a washing machine, a top-load washing machine that's out of balance, and the damn tub's beating against the outside housing. And I'm sure a lot of you people know what that's like, back before all these damn front-load bullshits nowadays. But either way, so she hears this going on, and so she's walking around the apartment trying to figure out where the hell the noise is coming from. And she starts walking back to where my bedroom, her bedroom, and the bathroom is. And she looks over to my bedroom and she sees me laying on the ground, face down, next to my bed, and I'm having a seizure. And the entire time, I fell in such a way that my head was under my nightstand. And so as I was having a seizure, my head would hit the ground, hit the ground. And that was contributing to that thumping noise that she was hearing. And she said she saw this go on for 10 or so seconds, and then I finally stopped moving. And where she's always kind of been into nursing and stuff, even though she typically always was waitressing, she knew that when someone's having a seizure, it's not a good idea to move them or disturb them in any way, because that can cause a lot more problems than they're already going to have to deal with from having a seizure. And of course, this was not my first seizure. I had had a seizure a few years prior to this, and I don't remember the reason why. I don't think there was any particular reason, it just happened. And of course, this event was certainly not the last time I've had a seizure either. But either way, I finally stop, and so she moves in to check on me, and, she wasn't getting a response. Now, where she's always been a smaller person, she had to basically drag me out of our apartment, go down the stairs, go out the front door, and drag me down the concrete steps, drag me into the parking lot next to the car, open the door, and try to get me up into it. And I imagine, thinking about that, if somebody else happened to see this going on, probably would have thought that she killed me and was going to dispose of me. So I don't know if anybody saw or not. If they did, they probably just wanted to have nothing to do with that, so I don't know. But she was able to do this through leveraging and whatnots, and she gets me to the hospital. She goes in, alerts them that something's wrong, and has some staff come out and load me onto a gurney and then haul me in. So they do whatever they gotta do. They give me that Narcan or whatever the hell it is that's supposed to solve any possible drug-related stuff, because she didn't know what was causing it. They didn't know what was causing it. At least they wouldn't know unless they did any blood testing. And I don't think they ever did, because if they did, they would have told my mom, and she, I guess, never found out. At least if she did, she never told me, because once my refill date for my Zoloft happened and I got the next month's worth of it, she never said anything or, hid it so that way only she could give me the dose. So I guess she never found out. But I was in there until that night, because when I was finally coming to and regaining my senses, they went ahead and discharged me. By the time we had gotten home, it was like 11:30, almost midnight. Now, my mind was still foggy for the next several days. Like, I know I'd only gotten like 6 or so hours of sleep because I ended up going to school that morning. But pretty much the rest of that school week, I couldn't remember shit. I don't remember really going to school, don't remember eating, don't remember showering, probably didn't even shower, I don't know. But I felt like a walking zombie for the rest of that week. And I'm assuming that's just because the Zoloft and the seizures combined really fucked the neurons in my brain up. But either way, that is the end of the story. I'm going to wrap this up. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, drop a like. If you've not yet subscribed, you know the drill. And until next time, I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.